Headright system.
It's 1618, and Jamestown, Virginia is on the brink of collapse. Tobacco is king, but there's a dire shortage of labor to tend the fields. In this desperate scenario, the Headright system emerges, a capitalistic fever dream concocted by men in buckled hats. They enticed with 50 acres of land like a lifeline to anyone willing to make the arduous journey across the Atlantic. Thus began one of American history's most gloriously chaotic and morally questionable episodes. The idea was devilishly simple: 50 acres per head brought to Virginia. For sharp-eyed opportunists like George Menifee, this was a free opportunity in bulk. In 1638, Menifee imported over 60 enslaved Africans and walked away with 3,000 acres of prime soil. Not a land grab, a land empire built on a ledger that rewarded cold, calculated ambition. To the downtrodden masses of Europe, it seemed like salvation, land, autonomy, and a chance to overthrow the aristocracy, the ruling class of nobles and landowners. To the colonial elite, it was a system of infinite leverage, expanding estates without ever dirtying their hands. Economic Darwinism at its rawest, the clever, the lucky, and the ruthless thrived. But there's always a catch. Couldn't afford passage? No problem. Just sell yourself into indentured servitude. 5 to 7 years of backbreaking labor under a sponsor who'd work you to the marrow and maybe toss you a patch of worthless frontier dirt in return. If you lived that long, disease, starvation, and native raids culled the unprepared. Survivors emerged battered and broke, while their sponsors sat fat and satisfied atop acres of other people's suffering. Indentured servitude was exploitation with an expiration date. Slavery was the eternal upgrade. By the mid-1600s, the elite realized that white servants eventually got ideas about rights, wages, and land. Africans, forced into bondage for life, were immune to such legal technicalities. When enslaved people became Headright eligible, the whole system mutated into a racialized jackpot. Menifee and his ilk weren't just playing the game, they were ruthlessly exploiting it, perpetuating a system of inequality and injustice. The rhetoric of freedom and opportunity evaporated. What remained was a land factory that turned human suffering into property deeds. By 1676, the cracks in this plantation paradise had split into chasms. Poor settlers, ex-servants, and landless drifters, tired of promises that never paid, rallied behind Nathaniel Bacon. Their fury, it aimed at Native Americans, naturally, but also the land-hoarding elites. Bacon's rebellion was a chaotic cocktail of populist rage and tragic misfire. It climaxed in fire, with Jamestown in ashes, and ended with Bacon dying of dysentery. But the warning was clear: squeeze the lower classes too hard, and they'll come back swinging. The elite's response? Clamp down, harden the racial caste lines. Slavery was safer than another white uprising. It is better to chain one race forever than risk giving the other ideas. And just like that, the die was cast for centuries of racial injustice. The Headright system was America's first big experiment in incentivized ambition. It unleashed dreams and exploited bodies. It made landowners out of nobodies and monsters out of merchants. We can admire the grit, the hustle, the wild-eyed vision, but we can't ignore the rot built into the foundations. It's not just a historical curiosity, it's a blueprint, a cautionary tale about how systems designed to reward drive and initiative can so easily be hijacked by greed and turned into machines of misery. The lesson? Be careful what you incentivize, you might get it. Or, as George Menifee might have said, land is power, but power always collects interest.
So, you've subjected yourself to a portion of the RPTM podcast. We're aiming for a perfect balance here. We hope we triggered some reluctant chuckles, but even more importantly, we hope we've left you questioning the very purpose of existence. And if, by some cosmic accident, you actually found this clip to be somewhat intriguing, summon that oh so enthusiastic thumb and bestow upon us the coveted upward gesture. And hey, don't neglect that subscribe button either, because who would want to miss out on our impending onslaught of mind-bending dialogues?